Games, board games. I might be talking about finding an audience, but I'm not gonna shout. Today I might have a bit of a joke as we talk about how to find the folk who will find that they enjoy your game and maybe fall in love with the name and also the way that the game plays. And that's what I'm talking about today. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good whatever it is, wherever you are. 10 a.m.-ish UK time for Busy Beats and Board Game Blether, and episode 766. It's a quick chat about finding an audience. So I'm going to be talking about this acronym that I heard, AIDA, which is about the attention, making sure that people, well, they need to be it's also about the awareness. So A can be awareness or attention, but you need to make sure that people are aware of the thing before they're potentially interested in it. And then once they're interested, they might do a little bit more research, or it might jump straight to the desire. And desire is, okay, I want to have this. I want to pay the money. And then the action is like at the point where they actually give you the money. This is kind of assuming that the ultimate thing is giving you money. But the action, I mean, potentially this might be a free print and play that you're just getting out there, and then the action from your perspective might just be the person playing the thing. Maybe that is the action that you're striving for. But I guess I'm looking at it from a commercial perspective. I'm also going to talk about how to decide who is your audience, actually doing little bits of soul searching. The answer is not everyone. And I also think that it's worth bearing in mind that people have different resources. Maybe you've got more time than me. Maybe you've got more energy than me. Maybe you've got more money than me. Maybe you've got less time and less energy. I don't know. You've got to think about your specific situations. And finally, I just was walking along this morning, think about reasons why people might kind of be supporting you. And I feel like it's either going to be about this specific game or your works as a whole. Like, okay, I've built up a bit of a reputation at this point. I like to think that my games are of a certain quality, or it might be about you, which I think is the kind of weirdest one. Hello, CD. It is lovely to see you. Thank you for joining, and I hope that you are having a lovely evening. Let's actually get to that. So, recent highlights, living life and seeing the sights. Recent highlights, playing games and other delights. What have been some of your recent highlights? CD, anyone else watching, whether you're watching live or after the fact, I am curious to know. And yeah, I had a couple of things that, I'm not going to lie, really bothered me when I was cycling along, and then people, like drivers, obviously I'm biased, but in my opinion, drivers being impatient, being jerks. But I would rather talk about the playtest event that I went to yesterday. So for those who don't know, Playtest UK is a lovely thing in the UK. Started off, well, it's kind of organised by Rob Harris, who unfortunately isn't actually in any of these photos. But here we see Mike Nudd on the left, designer well known for Dice Hospital, I guess, and yeah, also worked on Dice Theme Park as a developer and does Empire's Eternal Struggle. And we had a lovely day of playtesting, which I'll get to in a moment. CD says, went to the Queen Elizabeth II Memorial. Oh, yeah, I guess New Zealand is still technically a thing. Was nice, got sunburnt. It's been a while since we had enough sun for that. That sounds just lovely. So yes, I don't know what the Queen Elizabeth II Memorial is. Feel free to let us know. Here you can see my game that I think it's fairly towards the end of design, starting really into the development and tweaking the numbers, thinking about exactly how many cubes of each thing there should be in the game. And it's possible that soon I'll be thinking about, okay, who could I possibly pitch this to? And I might even take it to S, and I don't know. Like, I'd probably make it marginally nicer so that the main board, even if it's on a sheet of paper, it's not literally ripped. So Mike and Yost are playing cubes. Each time you place cubes, it has to be in a little triangle of three things. And you place one of your color, one of the other player's color, and one blocker. So Mike and Yost were playing green and yellow, and you can see how they've collected these little things. And those two greens next to one another could be removed. But if Yost were to do that, then Mike, playing yellow, could put in the triangle and make a line of four, which is way better. And so then there's this interesting network of, oh, if I remove this little shape, then someone else will get that shape. But then what Yost ended up doing was turning that into a bigger shape and removing it, but then using the movement to then go and block Mike from that area, which was quite a nice little play. Ultimately, the game finishes when one person is able to make the biggest shape, a diamond, like you see yellow having done here. And they did play a second game, which went a little bit slower because both players were now aware of the strategy, and this felt like it could have been a really interesting game, but we had to stop due to time constraints. I love Naomi. Like, a first-time designer, the game had some issues. The game was a really interesting idea, but Naomi's willingness to listen to feedback, but then at the same time be clear about the intentions of the game, and at the same time being like, stop, let me speak for a moment, and being assertive and saying, hey, I want to hear about this, or no, I don't want to hear about that. And it was just brilliant. There was this real energy at this table, and so I just loved what was going on here. And the game itself is I think that this next iteration, it's going to be very different. I look forward to it. But I think that just from the way that Naomi was taking feedback, it was brilliant. And this is Yost's gaming system, which is based on people who have 16 different criteria. So some have beards, some have moustaches, some have small mouths or big mouths, eyebrows or no eyebrows, a hat or no hat, bald or not bald, necklace or no necklace. And there's a lot of interesting people. Here I went for a handful of bald people, but so it is very male presenting. But in general, and this is Yost and Tuma, the designer, but in general, the characters are very interesting and they feel like a broad mixture of representation, and it's really cool. And finally, I showed off this brand new game that I've been kind of trying to work out that morning, and I'm really excited. I'm happy that I made this prototype. It was absolutely terrible, and I don't think when I say it's absolutely terrible, I mean from the perspective of a published game, like not ignoring the graphic design. Mechanically, if this were a published game, I would give it like 2 or 3 out of 10. There were all sorts of issues, but even though it was terrible, there was a good starting point and a couple of ideas. Oh, maybe if this part of the game is kind of interesting, maybe I should play around with that. And so I'm, again, really blessed that I'm in a position where I am able to show off something. So those were my recent highlights. And yes, absolutely, CD, I did have fun. And I don't know if you're saying it's... do you mean that... Sorry, I missed when this was written. Do you mean that Naomi was an insightful person? Or do you mean that I'm giving you insights into the playtesting process? But either way, I'm happy to hear. CD says that there was a New Zealand service in memory of Queen Elizabeth II. Yeah, that queen who reigned for a while and passed away recently. I mean, I'm assuming that most people know about that because even though it's like, it's kind of global news because Britain's... Anyway, yeah, let's not get into what's global. And hello, Johan, I hope that you're having a happy Monday yourself. And yeah, I'm glad that you, are generally having a good day. So let's move on to brilliant thing. Brilliant thing, what's a little thing which is brilliant? I am going to say, I'm going to move on to the main topic and finding your crowds, like not just in a marketing sense, but finding your crowd in a sort of people being together sense, like finding people with a common interest. I'm going to go with that. Like, I think that, sure, you don't want to be surrounded by people who always agree with you with everything. And I don't think it's important for a partner, a romantic partner, your best friend to be, I mean, if we agreed on everything, then it would be a bit boring. We need to be able to have civil disagreements and discussions, but it's more about, I think, the approach. Like, if I love dissecting things, like in terms of discussion, and you don't, that kind of breaks down a little bit. So it's more about finding commonalities of interest. And I appreciate your presence, you appreciate my presence. We enjoy doing similar enough things that we can do them together, whether that be making noises, like musical, or whether that be, physically enjoying each other's presence, just maybe sitting down, watching a movie, whether it be playing a game together or dancing or whatever, or indeed a particular style of conversation, because there are different styles of conversation. And so finding people that you can appreciate being together with is a brilliant thing, because humans are tribal. But let's move on to the main topic of the day, which is about finding an audience. There's something like, I know people talk about parasocial relationships where, like, I'm not a big name streamer by any means. Like right now, there's 3 people watching, and I appreciate all of you. And I think that I am, again, blessed that when I start, I kind of expect that there'll be at least 1 or 2 people watching and joining in. But obviously, if you get to the point where you've got thousands of people watching, then a lot of them will feel like they know you a lot better than you know them, and there's a kind of one-sided relationship. And I do get a little bit of that at UK Games Expo, for example, where a lot of people say, oh, I met you very briefly at UK Games Expo, and hopefully I leave an impression on them. I mean, Naomi and Callum said that they met me at UK Games Expo, and they even played something with them, which I apologise that I couldn't remember, but yeah, I churned through those demos. I demoed to so many people, and it's not always easy for me to remember, like, the hundreds of people that I interact with on a typical day. And I like to believe that I'm having some sort of, value, like I'm offering some enjoyment, like hopefully the game that I demoed was enjoyable, and he said it was, but it feels like it's not necessary or required for me to say, oh, I'm going to necessarily, oh, I remember your name, or I remember you necessarily. And hello, Alan Lacey, who says Yogi left an impression on me. And obviously in that scenario, for those who don't know, Alan Lacey is from Buzz and Meeples in North Manchester, actually called Prestwich. I don't know how you pronounce that. But yeah, obviously I remember Alan Lacey because we spent several hours together, and that was, a more equitable thing. Whereas if I'm at a convention and someone comes up to my stand, maybe a game about wee whimsical creatures and trying to identify them after makes noises might be the only game they play where you're making noises, or it might be like I might show them the most chaotic game. And hopefully all of these games are leaving an impression because they're designed to leave an impression. And I would suggest that finding an audience comes into that game design, like working out what you're making. I know that marketing is an icky thing, but I think there's something to be said for, look, the Marketing in its worst form is just lying about what it is and selling people something they don't want. But marketing in its best form is saying, hey, this is what this thing is, and hopefully you will enjoy it. CD says, totally can't be expected to remember everyone. I have the same as I teach 2-day classes. I know them by the end of 2 days, but no chance later on. Yeah, I work hard to try and remember their name just for the duration of that demo. And I repeat their names a few times during the demo if I can. But let's get back to, let's go to that awareness or attention, because that feels like the first step. So typically, I'm not a teacher. It's not like the students have to be listening to me, like they might have to be listening to CD or whatever. Fundamentally, people are going to be walking past my stand, and I have to do something to make those people at a convention slow down and play the game. Alternatively, it might be on a website. I have to do something with that description, with that box cover, to make people slow down. There's also the question of where can I expose myself? So let's think about these. Like, there's conventions, there's going on online Facebook groups, social media. Obviously, I can share it on my own Twitter. I can ask other people to do that. I can share it on my own Instagram or Board Game Geek blog, where I've got a small number of followers. Like, share it on previous Kickstarters, share it on my mailing list, and potentially go out. And there's a balance there, because if you are sharing it on a lot of Facebook groups, a lot of social media, I think there is a certain point where people say, oh, this is too much. And it can potentially leave a negative impression. But I would say that for most people, certainly myself, I err on the side of not enough exposure, where there's more chance of people just not even being aware of the thing. You need to not only reach within your own groups, and obviously when you've got customers and people have enjoyed your previous stuff, you want to tell them about the new stuff, but also it's about just generally making sure that everyone's aware of you. Now, fundamentally, I kind of feel like you've got physical passing traffic where you're in a place, people are going to wander past and they maybe see you. You've got, this is for new customers. I'm ignoring mailing lists and stuff for this moment. You've got me reaching out and typing something on like a Facebook group, something like that. Or the third option is I make something that's worth other people talking about. And obviously the last option is the ideal. And that is the thing that will hopefully lead to long-term growth and will lead to more people hearing about, oh, Yogi. I mean, even though Yogi Guru came out 2019, and Yogi came out in 2017, and the original came out in 2015. And hello, Josie, lovely to see you. And I think that Eric Sunden talked about how they just bought it for the first time a couple of weeks ago, and then they said, hey, I just played this. This is actually a really good game. Well done. And then they posted a couple of photos on Twitter, and of course I retweeted that. And that's sharing with their followers. And again, that awareness or attention is something that I think you ideally want to build into what you're fundamentally offering, because this sounds really harsh, right? But I think that so many people say, hey, how can I get more attention for my thing? And they never stop to ask, does my thing deserve attention? Because what is actually unique about your thing? Why? And I know this might sound gatekeeper, and I don't want it to be that way, because if you have a game that it's just, hey, this is my thing, and sure, there's a lot of things like it, but this is my thing, and maybe you want to check it out. And I think there's something lovely about that. I think that there's something lovely about having your own unique take on stuff. But if you actually feel like you want the attention, You want people to end up buying your thing. Why? And hello, Jamie. It says, thank you for joining us. CD says, with Wellycon, we often meet people who love games, but they have their own group and they've never heard of Wellycon. They've got no idea how to get outside of your own circles and media stuff. And yeah, it is really tricky. So as I said later on, I mean, we could extend this if we're talking about like conventions rather than just games. So we can talk about fundamentally people, either it's something specific to do with this project, or it's to do with your reputation, that they believe, okay, I've played other things, and it can be a mixture of these, or it's about you. Now, I'm going to look at a couple of my recent things. So I'll talk about things that are already fully public, and I think I've got all the rules online. So a game about selecting 7 cards, speedily searching for synergies. What's different about that? Why should someone buy this over some other game? Well, there is no other speed drafting game that I'm aware of. I mean, there's a lot of other speed games, but frankly, games that mix together speed and strategy are a rarity. And so yeah, the other thing is, yes, the icons being mixed into the illustrations, I think, lowers the cognitive load whilst allowing you to have a lot of things to look out for. And then it becomes a mixture of quickly scanning for icons with the variance and combo feeling of a lot of other games. And so there's, yeah, it's just like speed drafting. There is nothing like that. A game about counting hats, shapes, and colors, that keeps getting trickier. I mean, yeah, sure, there's other games about counting stuff. There's loads of other speed games, but the key thing is it gets trickier, and it's in the name. I mean, it's not a great name. I'm sure that if a publisher ever licenses it, it'll be changed. But the key thing there is that because each time you win a point, each time you win a point, you've got more to count, and each time you've got more to count, it's harder for you to get that one more point. And there's the tension of, oh, you get it wrong, you lose everything, but there's also the, okay, I've got to get to 5, but now I've got 4 cards, and it's so hard to get to this 5th one, where someone else who's a bit behind is going to... And that sort of catch-up mechanism is actually a rarity in speed games, and so it levels the playing field. It means that you can easily change the targets. I've played several games with adults where it's like, well, I've played this hundreds of times. How about I aim for 7, you aim for 5? And then I'm playing at my full ability. I'm really testing myself. If it's towards the end of a convention, I'd probably go lower or just kind of not struggle as much. But then they're going for 5s. And with a simple twist, I think that the ability to balance the game easily with just changing a number is a really strong part of it. And yeah, a game about drawing creatures, complementing the drawings and complementing the complements. I mean, again, there's something unique there where what other game is there where you're complementing complements? I mean, it started off me thinking, oh, it's about the drawing that people like the best. But no, what if it's about people expressing how much they like it, and then people expressing how much they like the expression of how much they like the pictures, and that's... So there's definitely, I like to believe, something unique in all of these. And when you're trying to get that awareness, attention, whatever you call it, sure, you need to go into a lot of groups and tell people. Sure, if you're in a physical place, then having a simple question, like when I'm at a convention, handing out stickers, everyone who walks past, if there's one person who walks past that no one on my volunteer group interacts with, I consider that a small failure, because we want to at least say hello, or hey, do you like word games or something? Lots of love, CD, have a great sleep. But the key thing is, in a physical place, interact with those people, get them involved. In a online space, maybe Yeah, this is where it gets. This is where it can get disingenuous, which I really don't like. You want to ask a question because that will help the algorithm, and it wants to be a question that people are inspired to answer. But if you're just asking the question for the sake of having more people answer it, and you don't actually care about the answers, that's clearly not okay. And so, who, yeah, that's not something I can get on board with, even though it is clearly successful from a marketing point of view. But if I'm asking a question, I really care about the answer. Whereas there's so many people who will be like, oh, what do you think of this? And they've got no intention of changing it. And yeah, to heck with those people. Um, yeah, sure, I benefit from graphics really matter at a convention being read, it grabs people's attention. Not gonna lie, that's the reason why I wear red consistently. I would be wearing a lot more red if I was at a convention. I wouldn't be wearing something that's just to red. This is actually a Christmas jumper because it's warm and comfortable. But yeah, I feel like we've talked about attention and awareness enough. If you've got any, as always, if you've got comments, questions, then do that, and I appreciate any fun like follows. Interest. So once you've got someone's attention, you need to be able to communicate why they should be interested. So maybe I would say, okay, I am working on the first ever competitive game that's actually about coloring in. That's actually about coloring in. It's also the first ever strategic game that's actually about coloring in. I mean, there might be another thing, but any counterexamples that have been said, are, to my mind, about the mathematical structure and its mathematical framework, where, yeah, sure, you might color in as part of the process, but it's not about coloring in. And you've got a bit of, okay, this is what my game is. You've got to give some people some reason to look further. And there's a kind of twisted thing where if someone feels able to help, then they've got more interest. Like, I've been interested in some projects because I've seen them and it's, wow, that's kind of like a train wreck. And then I keep tabs on that. I'm not going to lie. But that's not a great interest, and it's probably never going to lead to the desire. But there is interest there. I mean, I don't think that interest has to be about saying that this thing is definitely good. I think interest is basically about setting your project apart, saying why it's different. I mean, maybe it's the location, maybe it's. And in a Facebook group, actually, this morning, I read a post by someone saying, oh, my project's different because I'm going to give $2 from every sale to my son's college fund. And good for you, good for your family, I guess, but you're basically assuming that people care about your child. And I find that's a bit weird because, sure, your friends might care about that. I'm not going to deny the fact that my first Kickstarter absolutely funded, like, more than half of it was down to people who knew me directly and were basically saying, yeah, we want to support Bez because we like Bez and it'll probably be a decent game, but it's more about, yeah, Bez is fun and we want to support Bez. And I'm not denying that. Like, sure, using a little bits of that. Wait a minute. There's something really wrong happening with my laptop. I need to quit some stuff. Please, it's on 4% when it's um, try.
Internet madness time, says Josie. Yeah, this streams. So streams breaking up. Okay.
Going to my phone.
Hopefully it. Hopefully it works.
This is really unfortunate, and I massively apologise. On. I'm
Okay. Sorry about that, everyone. There's something wrong with my laptop. Even though it was plugged in, it was, yeah. But yeah. Anyway, I'm going to carry on here. So I was talking about the interest, and I think that the interest is about just saying this is something different. It doesn't have to be about, and it has to be something different that people care about. Like saying it's supporting me, or this is supporting my holiday, or this is supporting me being able to do this, or me supporting my child going to college. I mean, sure, that's great for you, but why do I care? Why should anyone who doesn't know you care, if that makes sense? And just in case you didn't catch the end of that when I was on my laptop, I'm aware that many people supported my first Kickstarter because it was me and because they were friends, and I don't want to. Yeah, of course you can use your social capital, but that's not a way you can carry on. Interest. What do I care about? What does a typical customer care about? Because we care about something that's cheaper, or something that's different that we will enjoy, something that's unique, something that's potentially pretty, something that's something that appeals to us. And then once you've got that interest, people are going to do some research, and again, you have to make it easy for people to go from the awareness to the interests. Like, get them at a real life convention, get them into a demo as quickly, as easily as possible online, give them the information up front that you think they'll need. And then desire is not just I quite fancy that, but I'm fancy that enough that I'm willing to pay for it, and or whatever the cost is. And so at that point, it feels like you need to give them enough information. And I want to acknowledge that I think I give people too much mechanical information about the rules because that's what I want. But I've learned in the past week that most people don't want to know all the rules. Most people aren't able to read the rules and think, oh, so that's the way the game plays. Most people just want to hear the unique selling points, and they want to hear, oh, that's why it's good, that's why it's good. And something I started, which I'm still doing, is something I started when I was working for AIDA Games, is why back this Kickstarter? What are the unique selling points of this game? And also for my last Kickstarter, I not only said why back this, but also why is it great, but also what's it like to play? What emotions does it give you? Is it chill? Is it frantic? Is it chaotic? Does it make you smile? Does it make you hate the other person? Because, yeah, actually one of the comments I got for an abstract strategy game I played yesterday was, wow. I'm actually going to look for the exact quotes which I wrote down. It was, that hurt me emotionally. And even though that might sound terrible, when an emotional reaction is good, because at the end of that game, that's just a small part of it. But that punctuation of, oh wow, I was almost able to get that, I'd worked hard for that, but then the other person spent all their resources to just stop me getting that thing. And there's a really interesting back and forth, and at the end, both players really enjoyed it. But you want an emotional payoff. You want something where, and I think this is a key thing, when you talk about the desire, who would desire the thing? It's again, thinking about your audience. It's not You can't just say, oh, there's an audience for this thing, let me find it. You've got to think, who is the audience? Like for a game about drawing creatures, complementing the drawings and complementing the complements, if you're all about strategy, if you're all about, testing your abilities against someone else, that's not a game for you. If that's what you feel like a game should be, then it's not a game for you. But on the other hand, there's a lot of people who I think it would be a game for. Basically, if you don't feel like games have to be just about winning and losing, if you don't feel like games necessarily have to be about telling a story, if you feel like games or if you want to call it a game-like activity, I don't particularly mind. If you feel like it has some value, if you are willing to kind of be nice to people, and the interesting thing is that when people hear about it, I've had someone actually saying that they don't like the idea and they would rather play a game where you're trying to criticize other people. And he says, oh, that would be cool. Have you considered making a game where you're kind of giving backhanded compliments? That would be cool. But that's not what the game is. That's totally antithetical to the game. And I could, go along with that, but I'm not giving people what they ask for. I'm giving people a very curated experience, which is this. And the key thing is to think, who wants this? What is the target audience? And now I need to find not just an audience, but that audience. Does that make sense? So, it feels like step 0 is working out who your audience is so that you're then able to get them through. And then the final thing of AIDA is the action, which means that you need to make it easy for people to, if the action in your perspective is buying, you need to make the game available to buy, ideally have it available in shops. Maybe if you're at a convention, having a card machine is really good. And if it's obviously online, I want people to be able to go through that with as few kinds of barriers as possible. Even like a tiny 5-second barrier. If someone needs to put in their phone number when they shouldn't really have to put in a phone number, that's a terrible choice. So I hope that makes some sense. And I thought this was going to be a really short show, but I guess it isn't. The next thing that I wanted to say is about resources. Now, Rory Muldoon disagreed with me on Saturday, but we had a nice conversation, and I just want to acknowledge that, whatever way you think about it is fine, and this is the way that I think about things. I like to think about resources as money and time and energy separately. I mean, you can develop the skill. If you keep going, you'll probably be better at stuff. If you keep designing games, you'll probably become better. If you spend hundreds of hours or thousands of hours drawing, or programming or making videos, you will become better at it. You can do anything. Okay, there is some limit of maybe there's a high ceiling or some things that you simply can't do because of your physical or cognitive ability. But I guess ability could be a fourth resource, but fundamentally that ability can also be built up. So I guess it's worth thinking about that. And in which case, my biggest resource is and the ability is kind of like an engine. So it converts one thing into another thing in some sense. But anyway, when you've got people ask me, oh, how should I find an audience? How should I market my small card game? You've made a lot of small card games, Bez. How do I market my small card game? No, that's not a good question because I don't know you. I don't know all your idiosyncrasies. I don't know what you're skilled at. I don't know what your resources are. I don't know how much time and money and energy you have, what appeals to you, what gives you energy, what drains your energy. And frankly, if I were to spend time learning all this about you and giving you a detailed answer, I would expect some compensation in return. Yes, either money or you can give me some of your time and energy in return. Now, let's talk about those three things. So you've got money that you can pay to advertise your stuff on Board Game Geek, on Facebook. It's worth acknowledging that the cheaper your thing is, the worse it is for paid advertising. So direct paid advertising is typically going to cost you a certain amount of money per person that pledges on your Kickstarter or per person that buys the thing. Now, for a small card game where you might be getting as little as £2 or whatever profit per person, you can't get people for that amount of money. Whereas for a large game, which you might be earning £60 profit per person that backs at the highest pledge level, well, I think it's very likely that Facebook adverts or Board Game Geek, like paid adverts where you're paying like the cost per click, it's very likely you'll be able to get a decent return on that, where the cost will be less than the money that you're making per pledge, and then just keep on pushing those adverts through until it reaches a point where you're not sure if you're earning money anymore. So let's say you are in a situation where you've got a tiny card game, but you've got some money. Well, how do you spend your money? Well, I would suggest making prototypes. Making prototypes is something that costs money. Make more prototypes. Make your prototypes fancier. Pay for some upfront art if you're not the artist. Pay some for some more upfront art. Get other reviewers, whether that's a paid review or whether that's an unpaid review, because some people will do payments to prioritize things. Then, do one of those things, because that's then something that gives you social proof. And yeah, I know another person, Forrest Bauer, looks at Kickstarters and says, okay, what is it? Do I want it? And will you give it to me? And that question is like, do I want it? That's interesting, because having another person do a review of it tells me, okay, can I trust this person? Do I want it? And in my instance, like, I managed to launch a Kickstarter again with 0 reviews, which I'm still amazed that in this day and age so many people backed it. But I guess that shows that, like, after 8 years, after 8 years of working full-time on board games, people are starting to be like, yeah, Bez is probably going to make a good game and we can trust Bez to do what she says, and that's lovely. What else? So money, spend money on events, spend money on getting other people to demonstrate the game. And I would also say that, again, step 0, make sure your product is worth that. Because if your product isn't something that gets people to talk about it in a positive way to their friends, then that's really going to... Maybe you need to go back to step 0 and examine the product itself. Like, maybe pay someone else. Like, I know that you can hire me to do development if you want to hire me to do consultation for your game. Everyone I've done it for has been like, wow, I got so much value out of that. And yeah, I like to believe that I'm able to be a good sounding board, talk you through your options, and talk about the specifics of how to make finding the interesting things about a specific game and making it better, because you need to target it and design the game with the audience in mind. Once you've worked out who your audience is, sometimes you actually need to go back to stage 1 and think, okay, I've made a game, now and it's a solid game that I would give like 8 out of 10 to, but there's not like a million people like me necessarily. I'm going to, okay, now I've found out who likes it, I'm going to make it the best game for them, because currently there's a lot of people willing to give it like 7 out of 10, 6 out of 10, but I need to make it so that there's people inspired to give it like 10 out of 10. It's better to have something divisive, something that people can either fall in love with and a few people are going to hate, and turn away those haters. Like, obviously that's better for you. Turn them away. you'd rather not have those. I mean, frankly, it's a weird one where there was a somewhat controversial game where the designer of it said, "Oh yeah, every time that people criticize my game, I get a couple more sales," and that's interesting. So, does your game inspire conversation? If not, you might need to go back to step one. But yeah, you can spend money on hiring extra help, making more prototypes to send away, making you know, getting more reviews, getting a bit bigger convention presence. But you have to think about what actually translates. For bigger projects, direct advertising is more worthwhile. For smaller projects, you might want to spend money on content creation, getting someone to make little funny videos that will hopefully go viral, or getting someone to, and then you've got the time. Like, do you have time to go to all the conventions? Do you have energy to go to conventions? Do conventions give you energy? Does blog posting give you energy? Does making a video and streaming give you energy? Or does it drain you? And you need to be actually cognizant of all these things, because we all have limited energy, we all have limited time. So what is, and the energy is the thing that probably varies the most person to person, I would say, not only because it's a resource that varies, but also because different things can give or drain energy. For me personally, I love conventions. I will always come back from a convention with more energy, but then the day after a convention, I'm a bit sad. Unless, of course, I'm with people, like happened at UK Games Expo and Tabletop Scotland, which was absolutely lovely because I'd planned for me to still be with friends. But yeah, I work out what gives you energy and do more of that. And then the things that drain you energy, think, do I really need to do it? And do like maybe a bit less of. Conventions are great, says J Foolsguard. I agree, that's the thing. But then there's people who don't agree. And you think about, honestly, in terms of time, like conventions are great for building that one-to-one relationship. It's great for seeing how things go in real life. But in terms of maximizing your time, if for you a convention is similar energy levels to posting online, I would say that posting online is always going to have the highest potential return. J Folsgard says, do you try to do everything? No, that's what I'm saying. Like, if something, we all have limits. And obviously with money, I need to think, okay, I've done paid advertising one time. And no, actually, that's not true. I've done paid advertising for a Kickstarter project one time. I've also, then it's, yeah, let's ignore convention presence as a paid advertising, but it kind of is. But like, I have paid for being in the UK Games Expo magazine. I've paid for being on the Aircon banner, but then I think maybe that's not worth it. Maybe it's worth me spending that money on making more stickers and making sure that everyone has a funny sticker to hand out and that people enjoy getting these cool little stickers. So just like I can't do everything financially, I can't do everything convention-wise. For a while, I did have so much time and energy that I went to every convention where I felt like I might stand a chance at breaking even. So if I if I made zero profit, I would consider that a success because at least I'm selling stuff and potentially there's more word of mouth down the road. But then it came to, I think, 2017, 2016, can't remember, where I was invited to, I think, 3-4 conventions in the space of 2 weeks. And I was actually considering going to 3 conventions in 2 weeks. Like, one was on the Saturday, just a one-day thing. One was on the Sunday, and then there was another thing the week beforehand. I was like, no, this is just too much for me. I don't have the energy. Like, even though I love conventions, it's the travel, like the travel journey time, that is too much. If I'm going somewhere and then just staying there one day and then having to travel back, that's clearly too much. And so I realized I need to think about, I can't be going to literally everything. As much as I love conventions, I have to think, is there enough return? And I still go to all the medium-sized conventions, but what I would call the small conventions, there has to be an extra reason. I'm not going to go to it just because I could get a free stand and come back. I am next year, for the record, going to something in Northern Ireland. I might even lose money by doing it, but I'm going there. The organizers, like, I'm getting some free space. I'm able to stay at someone's place, and I'm excited to see this convention. And also, it's my last year in the UK next year, so I'm looking forward to that. And similarly, we need to think about, yeah, is this giving me energy? Is it giving me customers? Is it helping me develop the game? Because I feel like those are the three things that you want to think about. And I'm definitely thinking that next year I'm going to go to Gamma, even though it feels like, wow, that's not going to be an enjoyable thing, because it's talking to shop owners and distributors. It's not really talking to my customers, which is like the reason I love conventions, is just seeing people enjoy my stuff. But it's very much about, okay, I need to get into shops, I need to get into distribution. If I want the LDEC to have the potential that it could do, that's where I need to be. And you need to think about the potential payoff. So I leave that, frankly, as an exercise for you. Any more specifics, because I've already gone on, I think, long enough. And yeah. Oh, the other question J Fools Guard asked is, how much do I plan ahead? I'm not sure if I'm answering this correctly, but yeah, I know that I'm going to go to, like, I might go to Dragon Meet next year, or I might not be around. I'm planning to not be around for Dragon Meet. I know pretty much which conventions I'm going to go to, or which ones I'm planning to go to for the next October, November, December, for the next 14 months until I leave UK. I have a vague idea of, okay, I will do this and then do that and then do that project, and I do spend potentially years on a particular project. I've got my game with the longest ever name that people are still wanting. I'll do all the art for that when I'm in Thailand, and I'll launch that. Hopefully, I'll have something of a following at that point, and people will be willing to spend 30-40 pounds on, which is expensive for a party game, but I have heard multiple people say it is the best party game they've ever played. So, and I'll see how that goes. But look, as a small publisher, some of my strength is I'm able to pivot. Hopefully that answers all the questions. If anyone else has any questions, feel free to ask. Otherwise, at this point, I am going to ask you. Question of the day, question of the day. Here's a little question before we go on our way. Question of the day. Do you have a pet? Yeah, yesterday, I played the game that I showed at the start of the stream, Platypus, and then decided that the first player should just be whoever touched an animal the most recently. So yeah, my question is kind of, do you have a pet, and when did you last touch an animal? I've not touched an animal, well, counting non-human animals. I've not touched an animal that's alive because when I say alive, I have kind of touched animal flesh. So, as in to eat, because I'm not a vegetarian. But I have not touched an animal like for a while. I don't think I touched an animal last week either. Yeah, there's not a lot of wandering cats and dogs around here. It's been a couple of weeks. I don't have a pet. I don't think that my life is static enough and settled enough to really get a pet. So how about you? I enjoyed a blethering game, says Josie. I'm glad to hear. Thank you. Over to you. What are you up to? You can share button if you want to. Anything you want to share. I'm interested in what you want to do, what you have to do, and please do share. I promise that I care. I feel like I'm going to stop reaching out to publishers at this point because I've reached out to all the publishers. I feel like, yeah, I definitely want to reach out to them. And at a certain point, like today, there's only a week left until lesson. So at this point, even though I've not got a reply from some of the publishers, it might just be that I reached out too late. Maybe 4 weeks or 3 weeks, however long I left wasn't quite enough time. But hopefully I'll be able to reach out and get go and see them on the Wednesday and get some sort of contact details for, yeah, reaching out to Nuremberg or Cannes next year. But I'm excited for that. I'm basically, the two things that are big in my life are firstly getting ready for Essen, which weirdly, I don't have a stand. And Tabletop Gaming Live was the biggest convention I'd ever been to without a stand, because previous to that, the only conventions I'd been to, I'm trying to think, without a stand, I'd been to Bastion and KCON, both of which are very small things. And now I'm going to Essen without a stand, which is really exciting. And this is my first time ever without a stand, so I went in, I want to say 16, 17, 18, 19. So I went 4 years with a stand, but that's obviously very different. You have to be there. So now I've got some appointments, I've got some dinner appointments, I've got some time when I can do, I am going to be at the Norwegian stand every day at 2 p.m. So I'm going to try and be there from like 1:30 until 4 o'clock. And so if you want to see me, try and come over for the 2 p.m. events. And if you're just a little bit earlier, we'll be able to chat. If you're sticking around after, we'll be able to chat. I'm going to try and keep all the 2 p.m. events quite varied. They are going to be selling the L deck, which is generally unavailable. And also a game about wee whimsical creatures and trying to identify them after some sizes, which has sold out in the UK. Yeah, I'm going to be there, and one of the days will be something to do with a game about whimsical creatures and trying to identify them after some noises, and the other two, wow, it's 4 days. I keep forgetting that it's Thursday. Maybe I'll have 2 days about noise making and 2 days about the L deck. 1 day for speed games like Wibble, Grabble, Categorical, and 1 day for something else for the L deck. I don't know. Yeah, I'll ponder that, but hopefully it'll be fun. I mean, I hope they'll be fun, and I hope every day will be totally different and worth attending. So, yes. Getting ready for Essen, getting my new game ready for KCON, which means I've got to draw 54 things between now and Thursday. Getting ready for Essen also means doing a bit of washing and preparing and packing over the next week. And I'm thinking about dyeing my hair, so I've got like kind of these old ends, which might be nice if they were a bit more red. Might get a haircut. A couple of things, personal things. So, yeah, what are you up to? Josie says, doing some prep for an interview for a job I'm not 100% sure I want, as money will be the same as I'm currently on. Well, will you enjoy the new job's roles more? Will you be given more opportunity for advancement? J. Folsgaard says, it sounds great with the Norwegians. Will you be at Essen? Will I potentially see you at Essen? It would be delightful to see you, potentially. Yeah, I was thinking, yeah. Sorry, I'm just thinking, I was thinking about doing 1 day for Yogi, but yeah. J. Folsgaard is going to buy a new pair of pants today. When you say pants, do you mean trousers? from a shop that will repair them if they break. Wow. And yes, and hopefully. Cool. See you at Essen. I look forward to it. And recap and wrap up before we finish up. Well, if you want to find your audience, I think that the step 0, which most people forget, is, and this might sound egotistical, but it's a question of, is your game good enough to find that audience? Because I like to believe that In a Bind, now known as Yogi, does have a lot of unique stuff about it. I can teach you how to play in less than 30 seconds. It is hyper-focused on the challenge of contortion. There's a whole bunch of unique cards, but despite all the unique cards, the game itself is, simple to learn, and it draws an audience. Everyone contorting, it's going to be self-propagating. And so I think that the success of that says something about the game's quality more than it does about my marketing ability. That's what I personally believe. And I think, frankly, a lot of people forget about that step 0, because if I ask you, why should I buy your game as opposed to this game or that game or that game, you need to be able to have an answer for that. Ideally, multiple answers. And if you don't have the answer, maybe you need to go back to step 0, which is doing the design and development of that thing. But once it's been printed, of course, awareness, attention, it needs to be out there. Do something interesting that hopefully makes it feel like it's worthy of continued research. Get people funnel people through so that you can tap into that desire, and hopefully, again, if the step 0 has been done properly, then this should just be about your communication and about you giving people opportunities to play. Make sure that you have it up on Board Game Geek, or make sure you have your video of how to play up on YouTube, whatever. And then the action, make sure that the game's available. Also, think about your resources. Think about, do you have money to spend on improving the game or getting it out there or getting more reviews? Do you have more energy to run more events, to go to more things? Do you have the time to? And what is giving you energy? What is draining you energy? Think about that. But I hope it's been a useful chat. As always, I am Stuff by Bez in all the places: Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. I'm not on Instagram so much these days. I will just warn people about that. And yeah. So, Dawn of Speed, thank you for following. I'm not sure about your question. And Ticking Death, also, please clarify. Hello, Xate, it is lovely to see you. And at this point, if you want to check me out in future, if you want to know what I'm up to, which conventions I'm planning to go to, check out stuffbybez.com/streams, which is not only my stream, it redirects to a Google Calendar of not only my streams, but also my public convention appearances, I would say. Share, spread the word, and thank you to everyone. Thank you for all the respectful questions and for watching, and just general thanks to everyone who continues to support me. Yeah. So, and I appreciate you, Xate, as always, being here. So at this point, there's only really one thing left to say. And I am going to say lots of love. Until next time, may you think not just about how to get the audience for your game, but also about how to make your game for the audience. Step 0. Bye, 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 bye. This is a goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye, bye, Bye bye, and now it's time to go. Bye 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 bye. This is a goodbye song. Bye 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye 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 bye. And now it's time to go. Bye bye, everyone. Have a wonderful day. Bye bye. Bye bye. Bye bye, Josie. Bye bye, Xates. Bye bye, J Foolsguard. Bye bye, everyone.